Air New Zealand has a new captain, and what a time to be taking the controls. Just yesterday, the national carrier revealed it is expecting a half-year loss of up to $55 million after an anticipated bump in passenger numbers failed to land. Costs are rising too. The bill for engine leases has gone up $20 million. Several Air New Zealand planes have been grounded at various times. This is for unscheduled maintenance due to engine faults. And today, wild winds up and down the country has disrupted dozens of flights. Air New Zealand CEO Nikhil Ravichandka has been with the airline since 2021. And before that was Vector's Chief Technology Officer. And he joins us now. Kia ora, Nikhil. You're the CEO of Air New Zealand. When you hear that, do you want to throw up or cheer?
Oh, I spend a lot of time feeling terrified, actually, Lisa, but also quite excited.
Really? What terrifies you about it?
It's a big responsibility, you know. It's an iconic New Zealand business, respected around the world. We're one of the largest employers in the country, and New Zealand depends on us. And so doing justice to that role is something that I think about quite a bit, as you can well imagine.
What a week to take the reins. Today, so many flight disruptions. I mean, what does that cost you when you got planes on the tarmac?
Oh, I don't have an exact number for you, but we've had 181 flights cancelled. That's close to about 40% of the flights we fly today. 15,000 customers have been impacted. I'm happy to say everyone's safe and well. Safety is our number one priority, and our teams have done an incredible job in testing conditions. It's going to take a few days for these disruptions to roll through, and the team will work through that. But yeah, it's an expensive exercise.
Let's run through some numbers, eh? You have not so many people flying in and out of North America, and that's causing you some problems. Why do you think that market's soft?
It's more out of New Zealand into the US that's softer than the other direction. And I think the strength of the dollar has something to do with it. We're seeing a lot more New Zealanders going out to Australia and Asia and the Pacific Islands to holiday. And that makes sense. That's rational. Politics may well play a role. I'm not quite sure about, based on...
What role do you think it's playing, Nikhil?
Well, I think it's, it's just a complicated time, isn't it, in the world at the moment? And it's hard to tell, frankly, because... when the tariffs came in and so on, you could see a dip in numbers. But I think it's more economic than political.
Do you think you've put too much focus, and I mean Air New Zealand, too much focus on that market, all eggs in one basket?
No, I don't think so. We've got a good balance between North America and Asia. We see the Pacific Rim as our market to play in. We don't want to overextend ourselves beyond that. Possibly into London, which we're considering.
Possibly. That's an interesting word, Nikhil, because your predecessor was pretty confident about getting flights into London Gatwick by 2027 and starting to sell tickets by mid next year. Is that still your ambition?
That is still my ambition. That is still our ambition as an airline. The thing that it depends on is getting hold of our aircraft and engines. And so that's a dynamic situation. I was in with Boeing, actually, the chief executive of Boeing, just last week with our board. We got a whole day with their senior leadership team. And Boeing are getting themselves in a good position. They've started to manufacture about 787s a month, and they're going to get to about 10. And if they do get there, then we get our 5 aircraft delivered. One of those 5 aircraft is what we'll use to fly to London.
And you don't have any guarantees of that, the timeline?
We have guarantees, but the specific delivery dates are still a bit fluid, but not as fluid as they've been in the past. So we might be a month or two off, but not a year off, as it's been the case until now. When
will you know if you're going to be able to do that, start selling tickets from mid next year to London?
Early next year. We'll know around the February timeframe whether we're in a good place on that.
With the statement yesterday from Air New Zealand, it said you were carrying the cost of a full workforce.
Yes.
Right, as you gear up for more demand and more planes. So does that mean you have staff that you don't actually need or can use at the moment on the payroll?
Yeah, well, they're all working. So our pilots are flying, and our cabin crew are flying, and we've got our aircraft maintenance staff who are fixing aircraft. It's just the productivity levels are lower than we would like, because we just don't have the amount of aircraft that we have planned for. And that might sound like an easy problem to solve, but we learned a very bitter lesson through COVID, rebuilding out of COVID. Some of these workforces takes years to retrain. In the case of, say, an aircraft engineer, that's a 6-year apprenticeship program. And so, we are carrying more labor than we might require.
So it's more cost effective for you to keep them on the payroll than to make people redundant or cut staff and try and get them back later when you actually need more capacity.
That's correct.
Okay, let's talk about the regions. This week, Invercargill's hopes were dashed of a direct flight from Invercargill to Wellington. Regional routes, they are something that really rile people up. Does there need to be some kind of subsidy on certain routes, Nicole?
Look, this is an emerging area where I'm starting to think about it a lot more than I've had to previously. But if I can share it as an opinion, I think there is a need for certain routes to have some form of a subsidy. I'm sort of starting to refer to it as a sort of situational subsidy. When the economy is not doing so well, when demand is low, we may need some subsidy to keep some of the routes going. Whereas when the environment is in a much better shape, we don't. So we've got to be very surgical, I think, about how we think about a topic like that.
Who would pay the subsidy? You mean the government?
Well, we don't. I don't have an answer for that, actually.
No, but just as you were thinking with your personal opinions, do you think it should come from the government?
Well, Air New Zealand's 81% owned by you and I and our fellow citizens, and the remaining 19%, a lot of that is also Kiwi share. So we are, to an extent, subsidizing these sub-economic routes, but I think they're critical routes. They connect New Zealanders to each other, and they drive GDP growth. So we do need to think about how we keep these routes going.
And are you going to be having conversations with the government about that?
Yes.
There is a significant spike in truancy ahead of the school holidays, and it's pretty interesting because it's on the days where the airports are busiest, right, on the Thursday and Friday, because people are wanting to get cheaper air tickets. As a good corporate citizen, what role could you help here with in terms of bolstering school attendance in the way that fares are priced during school holidays? Because they just get more expensive.
I thought about all the questions you might ask, but school truancy was not one of them.
Yeah. It's a big issue, and people text us and say it is because they're taking their kids out of school because they want a cheaper ticket and they feel that demand pricing in the school holidays is cruel and unfair. Can you do anything about that? You're a tech guy. Can you do anything about that?
Right. I mean, part of our Grow Domestic strategy is to start doing more flying during the middle of the day. And I think that's one way we can really impact, especially leisure travel, where you're not trying to get to a place at 9 a.m. for a business meeting or whatever the case may be. One of the other things we're doing is what we call variable redemption. For our members who have got air points, for example, we want to make available some discounted flights so it can be a little bit more affordable. We realize flying is an expensive undertaking.
How would that work?
So at the moment, when we have flights with extra capacity, you see us sometimes putting some sale fares into Grab a Seat. Mm-hmm. That's available to largely anybody. But what we're attempting to do at the moment is to make sure that some of that capacity is actually made available to our AirPoints members who can book it ahead of They
get preferential treatment, like when you get concert tickets and a couple of days before, certain card holders get a first crack at it.
That's right.
Okay, AI, what role is that going to play in demand pricing? Because there's been concern overseas that it's going to be tracking your, hyper-individualised spending and habits. Are you going to use that, and how far will you go?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, fear-mongering around the role of AI in pricing. Maybe I'm a bit overly optimistic, but, I'm an informed commentator, I suppose, on this topic, given what I did previously for the airline. I think the use of machine learning, particularly a form of AI, is going to lead to fairer pricing. I don't think, personalized pricing based on some form of means testing that you're alluding to is something we should ever go anywhere near.
All right, we'll hold you to that and check back
Please
whether
do.
it does make it better in pricing terms.